Today I have Renee with us. She's a really good running friend of mine who I met through a local women's running club the end of 2020 and have just had the honor to get to know over these last, I guess, year and a half, right? Yeah, just through the course of that time, just got to know her better. And I ended up signing up for the California International Marathon. I actually pulled it up today, Renee, the post that I did asking in the local running club if anyone wanted to join me, thinking I would get crickets. And I think I tagged Renee in it. And she jumped on board and signed up immediately. So that was just really exciting for me. So she is going to basically be sharing her first marathon experience from the California International Marathon and just her kind of journey to get there. I was honored to be able to coach her there. So she's going to talk a little bit about that. And I actually know Renee from who she was. I knew who she was before I even met her. Everyone kind of knew her as the cute pregnant mama from Orange Theory. And she was just always killing it all the way through. And she's just the epitome of a badass mama. She does it all. She's an amazing mother. She works full time and she, knows the importance though of staying healthy and making time for herself as well. So I don't want to say too much so that she can introduce herself. So I will let her go ahead and start with just a little bit of background on yourself, Renee.
Well, thank you, Jane. The same goes to you with being a badass mom. But I kind of, with running, I kind of did all the basic sports when I was younger, like tennis, basketball, softball, soccer. I think I kind of started running in my freshman year in high school just to kind of get kind of a good base for basketball for, coming up in the winter. And then I ended up going kind of the cross country track route all of high school. I ended up being better at running than I was at basketball. So I just kind of did that through high school. And I guess you could say I'm a little more injury prone, I feel like, than some runners. So kind of some injuries. I kind of had to slow down at the end of high school. College kind of just ran here and there. And then did a lot more with like yoga, things like that as I was having kids. And really just this last couple of years started running a lot more, especially kind of when we all started running together, kind of in a little group we found.
So it's just kind of a funny story for everyone. I just thought it was so hilarious that on our bus ride to the start of CIM, that all through me knowing you and coaching, not one time had I heard this background from you about like basically, growing up running and being a runner in high school and cross country and track. And, so then when you were telling me that on the bus, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to do amazing today. Just, I think having that background, I just thought that was really awesome. So you had told me a little bit about possibly having an opportunity to run in college, but then you didn't. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, I ended up being, decent at running. So freshman, sophomore year, was doing pretty well, getting faster and faster. And I kind of started hearing from colleges my sophomore year in high school. And then kind of towards the end of that, I started getting pretty bad bursitis in my hips. And I kind of had to do a bunch of different treatments, things to kind of try to break up scar tissue. And really after that, it's like I never kind of got over that hump. I really didn't have faster, like kind of my fastest times were when I was a sophomore. I was hoping to start getting faster as a junior and senior and run in college. And it just didn't quite end up that way. So that's when I kind of ended up really just slowing it down. And I always loved running, but I kind of just started finding other things as well, kind of learning that I wasn't necessarily that person that could put in, 50 or 60 mile weeks continuously,
right,
with just running without kind of doing some cross training, which we might kind of discuss, with that kind of actually came up as well. Doing the marathon training, we had to switch things up because my feet, I also have some foot issues as well. I've had 3 foot surgeries, and that's all kind of based on just having not the best anatomy in my feet for running, and being prone to some stress fractures there, some kind of bone spurs, things like that. So kind of those were some things I've had to deal with, but also learn how to deal with and be able to keep running. And so I still feel pretty fortunate I've been able to kind of get through that, and that I was able to do the marathon as well.
Right. Before we talk a little bit more about the cross training then that you moved into because of some of those challenging injuries that you had and overcoming that and, just obviously continuing to work out. Before we talk a little bit about that, can you give us a little bit of just about who you are, what you like to do, your family, what do you do for work?
Yeah, so I live in Colorado, born and raised in Colorado. I am married with 3 kids. They're kind of little still, 8, 4, and 2. So we're kind of in that very, very busy stage with kids and sports and all that is, enough to stay very busy. We have 2 dogs as well. I do work as a pharmacist also. So that's kind of my big girl job. And I teach yoga on the side. Again, I kind of slowed down with that a little bit this last year to focus on a few other things. But that is definitely what keeps me busy. And with sports, with the kids, we have lacrosse and soccer and wrestling and all that good stuff. So that basically kind of consumes all my time between all those things, and then trying to find that little bit of time for myself every day. And that time I find for myself is working out. So, a couple different things I do with that, whether it's running or Orange Theory or yoga, or biking. That's kind of what fills up the day.
You definitely do all the things. And I think I hear that a lot is just, finding time. And you show that as long as you, make it a priority, you can fit in that time for yourself as well. Obviously, as a mom of 3 little kids, be a good wife and also working full time and all those things, right? But then you still find time to work out. And long before you were marathon training, kind of let us know what led you to getting into running a little bit more in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so I think it was kind of always my first love, and I kind of found it in high school. I don't know, it kind of just came fairly natural to me. And I think for me, I need that cardio component to where my heart rate gets up and you sweat. And that's what really helps me feel like I had a good workout. I've always liked lifting as well and yoga and all those things, but they're not quite the same as, really going and having that good cardio session for anywhere from 30 minutes to 2.5 hours on some days when you're training for a marathon.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like one of my really good friends, she started this running group, and then we kind of all started coming together. And really that's kind of what got me really running again, besides doing just kind of my regular running at Orange Theory. So before I was teaching yoga, doing yoga a few times a week, as well as Orange Theory a few times a week. And that was kind of what just kind of helped me to keep that base and stay sane with kids. And then when I started running outside more, again, especially kind of when we started that group, I don't know, it really kind of like reinvigorated that love that I had for running. And I think I also paused on it for a while because, one, you're so busy having kids, and 2, just come from my injuries. And I had a foot surgery right before I got pregnant with my first child. And I think after that, I kind of just never really got back to it. And I think I was a little scared to get back to it because I didn't know what that would look like, or if, my feet would hold up. So it kind of just gave me that confidence again, once I started running outside, to realize that I could still do it. And then one thing led to another. And I met these crazy running mamas that had me sign up.
I know. I'm just so thankful. So thankful for that running group. I know you are as well. In fact, I remember the exact run where I was telling you guys about you should do a marathon, and I really want to sign up for this one called the California International Marathon, and mentioning it to you and thinking, and you saying like, maybe this will be the year that I do one. So what kind of pushed you over that hump of basically getting back into running, like you said, being invigorated again to start it up, getting, even past that little bit to, I'm going to run a marathon now.
Yeah. It's kind of something I always had in the back of my head. I think as a runner, it's just one of those things. Like, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of, like a mountain climber, a rock climber, like they want to do certain routes or climb certain mountains because they're there. And I feel like that's kind of how it is. When you're a runner, you kind of start with a 5K, then a 10K, then, maybe a half, and then a full. And it's one of those things that's always there. Right. And the more you start running, the more people you meet, you realize it's kind of a thing, like, a small percentage of the population do it, like less than 1% or something. And when you do run, it's kind of the next goal. And I kind of knew I always wanted to do it, but I think I did just need that final little push. And, that's what helped me, I think, is really just having someone else sign up for it and saying, this looks like a good one. And I'd already been running at the time and I was feeling good. So I just signed up for it. And then once you sign up, there's, you just go for it. I mean, it's funny too, because I also compared it a little bit to like, when you find out you're pregnant, then you're just like, okay, like now we just go with this.
Right.
And that's kind of how it was signing up for the marathon. I signed up and I was like, okay, like now I just have to figure it out from here. And luckily I found the right people to help me figure it out.
I remember you saying, well, first, like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? But you were like, you guys, it's so easy to just sign up for a marathon. Like I just paid and press a button and now I have to do it. And I expect like something big to happen, but right. And then you're like, oh no, now what's next? Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that was, you had time though. I feel like we registered in like April.
I was just going to say that, I think
May or something. And then
we had about 8 months or so when.
Yeah. And then so you had some time to like, obviously build up and think about how you wanted to approach that, since the race was going to be in December. So why did you decide to hire a coach as opposed to maybe getting a training plan or going about it on your own? What was kind of your thinking there?
I think, one, just kind of talking to other runners and actually learning how beneficial coaches can be. I really kind of just started thinking about it just from, again, talking to other people and even listening to podcasts. They'll talk about, like even beginner, even for your first marathon, it can be beneficial to have a coach. And also when you go online, I mean, it's awesome, right? Because we can find as much information as we possibly want online, but then I think it's also a little bit overwhelming. So you can find thousands of plans online, but that was kind of my problem too. I was like, well, which one do I pick, and which one is going to be best for me? And then also, what paces do I run at? And I don't know, I could also see, I can't make decisions well. So I could also see myself picking like 5 plans and trying to mesh them together. And then, do you pick the beginner plan, the intermediate plan? Just kind of, I think just so many questions still about where do you start with even finding a plan? And that's the great thing, when you find a good coach, they kind of get to know you and know what you need. Also, again, same thing. I was always kind of worried about getting injured when I was training. So I think with having the right coach, they'll kind of work with you. It doesn't necessarily mean that, you can't still do the marathon. It's not going to happen. And so they can kind of work with you to help kind of adjust plans, which if you pick a plan online, or through a book, you can't necessarily adjust it as much as you might be able to.
Right. You have to figure out on your own. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you mentioned the fact of like picking 5 plans and then meshing things together, because I've definitely heard of runners doing that. Right. And like you said, yeah, we have Google, we can find any information we could ever want, but like having it in any sort of cohesive order or adapting when that needs to happen, right? That's when things get hairy and tricky. If everything just played out perfectly every single day, it wouldn't be an issue a lot of the time, but especially as we know in a marathon training, it just doesn't usually go like that. So, okay. So you are training for the marathon, you have a coach, we get started, and you're going along with this and everything. So I talk a lot about having a why on my channel and telling runners how important it is to have a reason for doing the running, and especially when you're starting marathon training, to get that in place, because things get hard very quickly, quicker than you would think. And if you really don't have a reason for doing what you're doing, then it's going to be hard to motivate yourself to continue going or to have that discipline, which I know you are great about. But what keeps you going? What's your purpose? What's your why?
Luckily, I've kind of just always loved working out. And and again, fortunately, I'm fairly self-motivated, to get up and do it. But on those days, I think where I really need a why, I just remind myself that this is kind of what I do for me. And I think we kind of, again, like as busy moms, we all kind of need that thing for us. And that was always kind of my thing, is like, I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing it because it's going to make me better and it's going to make me stronger. So I think I came back to like, first, it was kind of like, this is my me time. And this is something I would do to kind of show myself that I can do it.
Right.
And then I'd always kind of, when things get really tough, I kind of think about my family, with little kids, like you want to show them, right? Like you want to show them to be strong. I have my I have three kids. The two older ones are boys. And then my little one is a girl. And I think I don't know, it's kind of a thing, especially having that little girl, like to really show her, to be strong and what we're capable of as females for one. And then with the boys, just showing them, kind of what we can do, like when things are hard, like we can still do it and we can persist and we can have pretty cool outcomes if you just stick with it and go with plans.
I love it. Being a mom of boys and girls as well, I completely agree with you in terms of, what we see on TV, right? It's always the men. It's the men doing the sports when you flip on the network channels and everything. And, you have to hunt a little bit more to show, female athletes. And so showing that to your children as a mom, and whether it's your sons or your daughter, right? That women are just as powerful as men and can be as athletic and reach goals and do big things and all of that. So I think that's super important.
Yeah.
All right. So you're
to be healthy, kind of helping them, show them kind of
absolutely.
what I would hope for them. So.
And like you said, getting up and doing it when you set a goal and you said you do it, even though you don't want to necessarily, right? That just setting that good example.
Exactly.
So as you're going along with your training, what did you feel like were, maybe talk about the highs, what were kind of the things that were exciting for you along the way, and then some of the low points that were challenging that you had to work through?
For the highs, it was pretty cool just to see, like, as things progressed, so when you first hear about marathons, you hear about people doing these 18-mile to 22-mile training runs. It always seemed a little daunting. My thought was always kind of like, well, how can I actually get to that point of running at a decent pace on this such a long run? And then once you just start increasing the mileage and again, just following the plan, it was just so cool to see how things started to come together. So when it was like on those long run days, how all of a sudden it was just not that hard, to run 14 miles, then 15 miles. And kind of same thing with the speed work days, how just kind of putting in that speed work, once or twice a week, how all of a sudden you could do these tempo runs, at a longer distance and, not knowing if you could kind of meet those certain times, but then running and you're like, oh, maybe I need to slow down a little bit, or I'm meeting these times. It's really cool to see how your body adapted. That was kind of one of the things. And then again, same thing, kind of just running with kind of the group of girls that we have and, being able to just get time in and bond more, with the other runners. Like that was a lot of fun. I'd say those were kind of some of the, the pros of things I really found, that I loved about it. Cons, it was, I don't know, like everything actually, people are probably going to roll their eyes, but I think everything, I kind of liked everything more than I, was thinking, or it wasn't as much of a challenge finding the time, just because I realized that you're not doing a long run every day and, it's doable. I think cons biggest thing was when I did kind of start having an injury pop up and working through that. And, it was a little frustrating because I didn't know for a while if I was really going to be able to do the marathon. So that kind of took, x-rays and physical therapy appointments and doctor's appointments. So I think that was kind of the biggest thing, is just staying positive through that and, modifying and still telling myself like this is still possible and, kind of just staying positive, I think, through that whole thing when things don't go as planned.
Absolutely. And I was actually going to say that before you said it about yourself, is just how much I think your positivity played a role in you, being able to work through that challenge of that injury and, us working together to talk about, okay, we're not stopping, we're not quitting, just what do we need to do to adjust? What can we give you that's still going to prepare you, but also allow you to, heal appropriately? Because obviously, neither of us wanted you to get hurt further. You, like you said, you were working with a PT, you were working with your doctor, got x-rays. All of the things that were really important that you needed to be doing. But yeah, just staying positive. And I actually had that on my notes to say in the intro that I didn't, is that you are just such a positive light, that you're just someone who is a joy to be around because you yeah, like you're a mom of three little kids and you're working and life's hard and you continue to be positive through it all. And, I just, it's so admirable. And I think it is incredibly important, training for something like a marathon or, really anything when you have a big goal, right? If you're not confident and positive, then it's not going to work out in your favor. That mindset is so important.
I did think of one more con. Add that in real quick. So I think it was, we had a couple trips that we did when I was training. So, those were hard. There was one day we were in Arizona, and I think I got up at like, I don't know, like 3:30 or something in the morning because I had to do a 16-mile run before we got on the plane. So, I mean, I don't know if you'd say it a con or just something that's, kind of a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's just a good point to say, when you do have a plan and when you do sign up for something that, yes, sometimes it's going to be, you're really gonna have to squeeze stuff in. But it's almost always possible to squeeze it in. But, I mean, I didn't necessarily want to get up at 3:30 on vacation before flying out. But so I guess those are some things, they weren't my favorite part of marathon training, but I got done. But then it's pretty cool once you finish that run, you feel pretty good about it.
I think you said you were just running around random streets.
Yeah. It was pitch black outside. I really didn't know where I was because I was in Arizona. Towards the end of the run, this was also when I was having some issues with I think I did the half marathon a few days before that. I did the half marathon, then we went to Arizona. So my ankle was pretty darn sore at that point. That's kind of the injury I had, but I still had to get in that run. So I was trying to stay on grass, and I found this really nice big soccer field, but I'm pretty sure I ran about like 9 or 10 miles in circles around giant soccer fields for probably an hour and a half, last hour and a half or so of the run. So again, you make it work. And some other people that were on the soccer fields, once the light started coming out, probably were questioning what I was doing.
Yes, you're like, whatever it takes. I mean, you think of that song, right? I feel like that's you. You're the lady out there with the headlamp. Like,
Same to you, Jane.
But yeah, I mean, because just if it's a priority, you make it work, right? And that is absolutely what you were doing. And even when it wasn't your favorite part, you told yourself you would do it, so you did. So when we pivoted your training a little bit, I think we cut down your running a little bit and you were doing more cycling, right?
Yeah, we were. I think originally I was doing about 6 days a week of running. And then we cut it back from 6 days a week of running just to 4 days. Right. And then I was doing, I have a bike at home. So then I was doing, biking the other 2 days. So basically 4 days running, 2 days biking, and then a rest day.
Right.
As well.
And then you were going to Orange Theory once a week. Were you still going?
I think we started out twice a week, then we went to one. Right. I can't remember exactly where I was at once I kind of started having the ankle issues. I might have still been going there maybe one day a week, and we kind of counted that as kind of a running day.
Right. Well. That's right. That's right. So yeah, basically doing the bike in order to keep up the aerobic endurance that you would need for the marathon. Awesome. Yeah. All right. So going into, you did all the training going into the marathon. What goals did you have for the marathon? Did you have a time goal? Did you just want to finish? Were you sharing your goals? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I think I almost had like a couple, maybe you'd call them like levels or layers of goals. One I really did, I always just wanted to do a marathon, but of course I am a little competitive at heart as well. So I think for some reason, I feel like 4 hours is kind of this arbitrary number that a lot of runners use, right? You'd always hear like, oh, they got, a sub-4 marathon. So without really even thinking about it too much, I guess I kind of always figured I wanted to get under 4. I know we kind of did a time trial at the beginning, right? Kind of right before I started the actual like training I can't remember if we did about 18 weeks or so of a training program, but right before we did that, I did kind of my 2-mile time trial. I think that estimated that my time could possibly be around right around 3.5 hours if everything went, probably perfectly and as planned. So I started with like 4 hours, and then that still sounded like pretty 3 hours and 30 minutes. I was like, that's a decent pace to run 26.2 miles. Like, I know I can run that pace, but I guess it just sounded kind of daunting, right? To run that for 3.5 hours. So my first goal was like 4 hours, and then maybe like 3:45. But then also always, and you kind of knew this too, always in the back of my head, like once I started listening to more podcasts and talking to more runners, I found out that Boston qualifying is really kind of also a thing, kind of just like running a marathon. Then you want to try to qualify for Boston. So that was, I guess, my top goal, which I needed a 3:35 for. So that was always in the back of my head. That's what I really thought would be very cool to get. But again, by the time it came day of the marathon, again, the last basically about, I think, 6 weeks or so before, we did not run as much as I thought I was going to run. So it was kind of also a big thing to kind of trust the training and trust the process, because I never got to more than, I think, 45 miles a week was the top. And other than that, it was 40 miles a week or less for total running mileage, for me, just because, the increased mileage we found out for my body was not necessarily the best recipe. So
yeah. So yes, like I've talked about on this channel about the importance of sharing goals with someone that you trust. And I know you had kind of said to me, like, I'm not really telling everyone, but I would really love to qualify for Boston. So it was like, obviously, your husband knew and I knew, and it was like enough, I feel like, by you were hanging on to that goal. It was obviously a really big deal to you. And I know that that's what you were picturing in your mind. And so that's kind of the goal you had decided on, right? Going into race day, sub 3:35. And you also knew, though, the importance of, with qualifying for Boston, to actually run Boston, right? You have to like get at least a few minutes under. So I knew you were considering that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
All right. So Renee and I go to Sacramento. We're staying in the same hotel. We get on the bus. We go to the start line together, which was just such an amazing experience just to be with you then. And then we're getting ready for the race. How did it feel to be at your first marathon start line?
I don't know. I think, I tend to build stuff up in my head a lot and think about it a lot, like the weeks prior to it happening. And then I think my thing is kind of when I'm getting ready to actually run, I just try to stay pretty calm. So I think I remember just being, not feeling super nervous, just because I kind of felt like I'd been nervous for like a couple of weeks leading up to it. And so I kind of felt just calm, and I wasn't quite sure.
The storm.
Yes, exactly. I was just trying my best to kind of just stay relaxed about it, because I also wanted to start out the race pretty relaxed and just have things go smoothly. And again, I was always just a little leery, like in the back of my head, I didn't know what was going to happen with my ankle. It was still causing problems. And I know I had it was funny because like all the long runs, and I think pretty much everyone, I was taping it. I was continually taping it for the last month, and I had it taped. And right before we got off the bus, I remember thinking like, no, I can't have it taped. I'm not sure why. I just decided it wasn't the right decision. So took off my shoes, my socks, or one shoe and sock, and I took the tape off. And I don't know, it was kind of weird. I just had these weird little like gut feelings right before about little things I should do. I don't really know why, but I don't know, it was almost like I knew what I needed to do, and I kind of just tried to stay calm and like went with kind of my gut instinct on how I should feel, and just wait for the start.
Yeah. So you started marathon, and just going through that experience, is there anything, I don't know, compelling you remember from race day that you want to share?
I think I just kind of, I don't know, everything was just, it was so cool. We started, and I just remember I wanted to just, again, stay calm, but I also kind of knew what my pace should be at. So I just kind of kept looking at my watch and going through the motion, staying calm that first third of the race. But I also remember making it a point. I really wanted to enjoy it because it was my first marathon. And again, right, I didn't know if I was going to be one and done, right? We talked about that with, is this going to be my only marathon? Am I going to do this again? So we put in so much work, and I really just wanted to appreciate it. And there were so many people around, like other runners. I tried to make it a point every single mile, like whenever my watch would beep, to kind of just look around and take it all in. Just to take in everything in the crowd. There were people all along the route, which was so fun. So I just remember, kind of just waving to people that had the fun signs, and, chatting with a few runners along the way, and kind of just trying to make them and just have fun, especially kind of that first half, like make sure you're at a good pace, but make sure you're smooth and feeling good. And yeah, again, same thing. I just kind of just tried to stay calm, take everything in and enjoy it. I was having more fun, I think, than I was expecting I might have during that.
You picked an amazing first marathon race. I have to say, crowd support wise, I mean, I ran Twin Cities. Twin Cities was pretty great, but there was nothing like the California International Marathon. And I think it coming back after not being, because of COVID, not being there for a year, they came out in full force. The supporters were just amazing. So I agree with you there. It was just fun crowds the whole way. All right. So you're getting, to the end, those last 6 miles, everyone always talks about, like, that's when the real race begins, right? Because you got to start digging deep. What do you remember from that?
Yeah, I remember I think it was right around, is it right around about 6 miles left when you kind of cross that bridge? I think that's around like 20 or 21.
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
Yes, I remember that for sure, because it was, there's the pacers, so I think we both kind of started conservatively at like the 3:45 pacer. And then kind of as the race goes on, got to the 3:40 pacer, 3:35. And I think I remember it was right at that bridge, I think, is where I saw the 3:30 pacer. I was like, okay, like this is, this will be 5 minutes under Boston qualifying. Like, I'm going to go, I'm just going to kind of hang out with this group. But I felt good. You kind of wait for that crash you hear as well, right? Hitting the wall around like miles 18 to 20-ish. And that's kind of where I was. And I was like, no, like I'm good. So I got to the 3:30 pacer, and I remember kind of hanging out with them for like, I don't know, a half minute or so. And I was like, no, like I'm just going to keep going, which is a little nerve wracking when you still have basically like a 10K left, but it just felt right. So again, I just remember I was like, no, I'm just going to follow my gut. And like, I feel good and I'm going to go. And so kind of went past the 3:30 pacer, and I don't know, I remember kind of basically just like at that point, you're kind of running just about as hard as you can. Like, I'd say maybe the last 2 or 3 miles is when I really started kind of going as hard as I can. But it's crazy. It's that last 6 miles goes, well, yeah, I mean, it kind of takes forever, but it also goes pretty fast as well. Like, yes, I don't know. I just remember at that point, like, I was like, this is happening. Like, I think it's going to happen.
Don't stop. Just keep going.
Yes, that was my thing. I was like, kept telling myself, I think I had a couple mantras to use, and I think they kind of all just went out the window. And really, that's all I kind of said to myself then. I was like, just keep going.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. So you were really consistent about your hydration, and you were obviously consistent about taking in calories.
I did make sure I did that. Yeah. Cause I knew that
from the early on, which is just really important, I think. So that, along with obviously, consistent training is super important. All that you put in is really important, but, starting with that conservative pacing, probably just really helped you to get, what time did you get, Renee? How did the finish?
Yeah, I looked it up today because I can't remember the exact time, but I looked it up before. 3:26:13 was my official finish time.
Just insane. Almost 9 minutes. She finished under the Boston qualifying time that she needed for 3:35. So Renee not only finished her first marathon, but she qualified for Boston with an insane buffer. There's no question as to whether she's going to get in or not. That's a 7:52 average pace. So that is hauling. So just huge congratulations again. I just love rehashing this with you because it was such an amazing day. And, yeah, I mean, obviously I didn't know where you were on the course other than in front of me. So you were like the first person I saw though, when crossing the finish line, and just seeing you was just one of my favorite all-time moments. So
it was. Yes, I remember finishing and you were not far behind me at all. I remember finishing, and then I was able to look up on my phone where you were at, and that I can tear up talking about it because it was just so cool. Yeah, it's so exciting.
It's so awesome.
I know I tear because it was such an emotional, you put in so much time and so much work, excuse me. Yeah, so I finished and I looked up on my phone to see where you were at, and I was like, oh, she'll be here, any minute. So I was kind of just sitting right there kind of looking for you. And then I saw you and you crossed the finish line, and it was super special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit about just kind of, other than super special, but I guess, like your husband was there. You guys obviously traveled there together. He was there to support you. How did that feel, getting to see him afterwards and
That
having
was
him on the
awesome
course as well?
Yes, and thanks to your husband who was driving both husbands around. They were going to the certain point, and that just made it really fun because you kind of knew where you're going to expect them. So kind of once you saw them one place, we're like, okay, like in another 6 miles, we get to see them again. It kind of felt like it always kind of just gave you that extra little boost and surge of energy.
Yeah.
That was very, very nice having them. I think at three different spots, I think, and then at the finish. And my husband actually, I remember he was tearing up as well. I'm not sure if he'd admit it, but that was because I think he just knew, how much time we put in. I think he knew how many sacrifices it took. It took a lot from him to watch the kids. He would, be getting the kids ready on a lot of mornings when I was finishing up runs, and on the weekends, just watching the kids when I was doing this. And so, I mean, it took a lot of sacrifices on his part as well, instead of him doing something that maybe he wanted to do, he would be home or taking the kids to sporting events or, whatever they need to do. So I could get in these workouts and then traveling with me. And so it was super special when I saw him as well. And it was kind of like we both did it. We felt like we did it,
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no way, right? We couldn't do it without their support. It's so important. Just over the course of the marathon training and getting your time goal by a lot, what do you think were, the biggest contributing factors there?
So, I mean, the first one is probably kind of obvious, just, following the schedule and being consistent, kind of whatever program you choose to go with, or if you have a coach, just, if something is on your schedule to do it, or again, if it needs to be something modified to do whatever modification needs to be done. I think just trusting the process as well was huge for me, because again, I tend to overdo things. So again, that's kind of goes back to saying why I thought a coach would be so great for me, instead of finding plans online and being like, oh, today they said 7 miles, but maybe I'll do 9,
Right.
kind of having someone to hold you accountable, whether that's going to be a coach or just friends or family, that, you kind of show someone else what you're going to do, and you stick with it, but also again, not overdoing it. So, again, especially kind of when we had to start modifying and I was doing cross training, trusting that process, right? Because I guess I was kind of thinking, oh, we might get up to like at least like 50-mile weeks and this and that, and that never happened. And so again, I think going back to like, how did you feel when you towed the line? I think it's like, that was the thing too, is okay, like I just need to trust what I did and trust that this is going to work. And by having a great coach and trusting that person that, that this schedule is what's going to be best for me.
Yeah.
I think those are really the biggest things. So staying motivated to do the workouts, looking at your workout and whatever you need to do, making the sacrifices to do it. And then in the end, whether or not you had to change things during your training, to kind of just trust that, and, trust that you have done enough and that you're ready, and to not give up, like to never give up when you're there to keep going.
Absolutely. I think trusting it all can be so hard. So I'm glad that you brought that up, especially in those last couple weeks, right? When you're tapering and reducing mileage a lot and you're questioning, have I done enough? Right. And at that point, you have to trust that you have. And like you said, if you've been consistent, if you've done the work, then you're ready. Right. And just follow your race strategy at that point and put it all together. So that's awesome advice. Do you have any other advice for others out there who may be training for their first marathon, or maybe even a second or third, or trying to PR or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think just kind of remembering why you're doing it, for one, and kind of knowing that, we do it because no one is making us do these things, right? We sign up for it on our own crazy will. And these are the things we do for fun. So I think that's the biggest thing, is like, you just have to have fun with it. And however that is for you, I tend to be more of an extroverted person. So again, I was always, bothering you and some other friends, say, hey, like I have this long run today. who wants to come with me?
Let's
Even if
get
someone
together
joins,
and do
yeah,
it. Yeah. So much
even if
better.
someone joins you for a
Sure.
couple miles, just finding those ways to make it fun, right? So whether it's running with people, whether it's listening to a favorite podcast, which I always used to listen to music, and I found out that podcasts also kind of helped pass the time faster and made me feel sometimes like I was running with someone. Rewarding yourself. I mean, if it's like a tough training week you have, kind of set that goal to be like, okay, if I follow through, if I do all these things, I don't know, get a new pair of running socks. If there's some other running gear you wanted, kind of
The long
reward
run
yourself.
prize is what you would probably
Long
call
run
it.
prize. I like
Long run prize.
Jane knows I like prizes. Of course, I had to bring in prizes, right? So
No, I think that is sound
like
advice
motivators.
for sure.
Yeah. Just to keep it fun and to remind yourself, we're the ones who we sign up for these things because we want to do it, right? And so to kind of make it fun, kind of just try to enjoy the process.
Yeah, it's such a good point because it's like we tell people, right? Like, I have to run 18 miles tomorrow. It's like, well, no, actually, no, we're choosing to do that, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that you more than anyone, I feel like you demonstrate just how lucky we are to be able to just go out and put one foot in front of the other each day. Every mile is something to be celebrated. And at least for you, like battling the injury and stuff, and you really were so happy about any miles you could be putting in,
Right.
getting you one step closer to your goal, which you just smashed. And big congratulations again, Renee. And just really, really appreciate you being here to talk about your experience. Obviously, most people don't have the first experience that you did of qualifying for Boston, but at the same time, I mean, I think it's really important for people to know that there was so much more work from you even before you started training, right? This is years of hard work in the making and just being a dedicated athlete in general, in all the things that you do. And, you just really put the pieces together, to make it happen.
Well, you helped me put the pieces together. So
Thank you.
I really don't think I would have had that same time without your help, because just knowing, what should I do now that I can't do this run, or, and having someone there to help me through the whole entire process, which you did. So that was huge. I also owe that thank you to you.
Thank you. And I think some people will say like, oh, well, that will never be me. And it's like, I just don't think you have that attitude, right? Like you have the confidence and believing in yourself. And I think that goes so far, which you obviously demonstrated. All right. So what's next before we close this up? What's next for you, Renee? What goals do you have, whether it's with running or possibly something else?
Yeah. So it's already been a few months since the marathon, which I can't believe. And
so fast.
I think that was kind of my thing. I was like, afterwards, I'm just going to, just run for fun and, again, keep trying to get my ankle better, which it's still giving me some issues, but it's getting better. So I'm hoping maybe kind of like late summer and fall, I can start signing up for a few more races, maybe start getting kind of some mid distance, like 10 miler or halves. And then kind of late fall, it's almost time, then I'll hopefully be meeting the qualifying time window for Boston. So kind of applying for that in the fall is the plan. And then it would be time to start getting ready for that. And in between, just kind of focusing on kind of strength work for runners and getting back to yoga a little bit more. I kind of had to put on a back burner a little bit, when we were running more, and getting back to that and teaching again. And, a couple goals I have there of certain things I want to do, but just kind of having fun too, maybe finding some more like trail races. And I love trail running, and maybe doing some more trail races instead of, it was kind of all road stuff this last year, and just doing some stuff for fun, and then starting to think about hopefully Boston, kind of late fall.
It's going to be good. I think, those off seasons are so important to kind of get back to thinking about why we started doing this in the first place. Right. And not always being in these tough training blocks and everything. So,
right. Yeah.
That's really fun for you. And obviously we're having lots of fun getting together, running, having our Saturday runs and stuff as well. So
always, yes. The best.
Well, thank you so much, Renee, for your time. Big congrats to you again. So many big things coming for you in the future. I just can't wait to see what you do next. I'm just happy to be a part of it with you and be your friend and all those things. I feel really, really lucky. So thank you so
Same,
much.
same to you. Yes. Thank you so much for everything.